Okay, tell me what happened.
She cut me.
Who cut you?
Downstairs. I don't know.
Okay, hold on.
Responded to.
Hang on. Hold on.
Please. I'm downstairs.
Okay, who cut you?
This girl I responded to was ready for that.
What did she cut you with?
A knife. I'm pregnant. She cut me on my stomach.
Okay.
I'm afraid.
She cut you in your stomach?
I'm pregnant.
On the afternoon of March 18th, 2015, a frantic 911 call was placed from the basement of a house in Longmont, Colorado. The caller, a 26-year-old woman named Michelle Wilkins, was barely able to speak. Her voice was weak, strained, and filled with agony, the result of a horrific attack she had just endured. Michelle had been assaulted by a woman she barely knew, and in a shocking act of violence, her unborn baby was forcibly removed from her womb. Michelle had gone to the house of Dynel Lane, a woman she had met through a Craigslist ad offering free maternity clothes. What was supposed to be a simple transaction turned into a nightmare. Lane had lured Michelle to her home with the intention of stealing her baby. When the attack occurred, Michelle was 7 months pregnant with a baby girl she had already named Aurora. Lane, driven by a desperate and twisted desire to claim a child as her own, had no qualms about the violence she would inflict to achieve her goal. As Michelle lay on the cold basement floor, bleeding profusely from the severe wounds inflicted by Lane, she somehow found the strength to call for help. The 911 dispatcher who answered the call immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. Michelle's voice, though faltering, conveyed the terror and urgency of her plight. She managed to tell the dispatcher that she had been attacked, that her baby had been cut out of her, and that she was at 1620 Green Place in Longmont. The dispatcher, sensing the life or death nature of the situation, kept Michelle on the line, providing reassurance and urging her to stay conscious. Despite the immense pain and shock, Michelle remained coherent enough to describe her attacker, Dynel Lane, and recount the events that had led to the attack. The call lasted just a few minutes, but it was enough time for emergency responders to be dispatched to the scene. When emergency responders arrived at the house on Green Place, they were met with a grisly scene. Inside the basement, they found Michelle lying in a pool of her own blood. Her clothes were soaked through from the deep abdominal wounds she had suffered. The extent of her injuries was horrifying. Her abdomen had been cut open, and her unborn child was gone. The responders worked quickly to stabilize Michelle, knowing that time was of the essence. She was rushed to Longmont United Hospital, where a team of surgeons was already preparing for emergency surgery. Michelle's condition was critical, and the medical team knew that saving her life would be a race against the clock. At the hospital, doctors and nurses fought to stop the bleeding and repair the damage done to Michelle's body. They were able to close the wounds and stabilize her, but the emotional and psychological scars from the attack would take much longer to heal. As Michelle lay in recovery, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. She had survived a brutal assault, but her baby, Aurora, had been stolen from her in the most violent way imaginable. As Michelle underwent life-saving surgery, the Longmont Police Department launched an investigation to track down her attacker. It didn't take long for them to identify Dynel Lane as the prime suspect. Lane had a history of telling friends and family that she was pregnant, despite the fact that she wasn't. On the day of the attack, neighbors had seen Lane leaving her house in a hurry, and surveillance footage later showed her driving away from the scene. Lane had driven directly to Longmont United Hospital, the same hospital where Michelle was being treated. She arrived carrying the lifeless body of Michelle's baby and claimed that she had given birth at home, but the baby had been stillborn. The medical staff, however, quickly realized that something was amiss. Lane showed no signs of having recently given birth, and the baby's condition did not match her story. Suspicious of Lane's account, the hospital staff alerted the police. When officers arrived, they confronted Lane, who continued to insist that the baby was hers. However, the inconsistencies in her story, combined with the evidence found at her home, quickly unraveled her lies. Lane was arrested and taken into custody, where she was charged with multiple crimes, including attempted murder and unlawful termination of a pregnancy. As the investigation into the attack unfolded, the full extent of Lane's deception and premeditation became clear. Lane had spent months constructing an elaborate lie, telling her boyfriend, family, and friends that she was pregnant. She had even gone so far as to fake a pregnancy belly and tell people that she was due to give birth in the coming weeks. To lure Michelle to her home, Lane had posted an ad on Craigslist offering free maternity clothes. When Michelle responded to the ad, Lane saw her opportunity. She invited Michelle to her house under the guise of giving her the clothes, but in reality, she had a far more sinister plan in mind. The evidence collected by the police painted a chilling picture of Lane's actions. They found the knives used in the attack, bloodstains in the basement, and digital evidence that showed Lane had researched how to perform a cesarean section. She had even looked up information on how to care for a newborn, indicating that she had fully intended to keep the baby as her own. The investigators also discovered that Lane had meticulously planned the attack, right down to the moment she would lure Michelle into the basement and strike. The sheer brutality and premeditation of the crime shocked even seasoned detectives, who described it as one of the most heinous acts they had ever encountered. Despite the life-threatening injuries she sustained, Michelle Wilkins survived the attack. Her recovery was a testament to her incredible willpower and the skill of the medical team at Longmont United Hospital. The surgeons who operated on her were able to stop the bleeding, close the wounds, and save her life, but the emotional toll of the attack was profound. In the days and weeks following the attack, Michelle faced a long and painful recovery process. Physically, she had to heal from the severe injuries inflicted on her body, but the emotional scars were even deeper. The loss of her unborn daughter, Aurora, was devastating, and the trauma of the attack left her struggling with anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Despite the immense challenges, Michelle displayed remarkable resilience. She was surrounded by a supportive community, including her family, friends, and even strangers who were moved by her story. The people of Longmont rallied around her, offering everything from financial assistance to emotional support. Michelle's strength in the face of such overwhelming adversity became an inspiration to many. Over time, Michelle began to rebuild her life. She sought therapy to help her cope with the trauma and leaned on her loved ones for support. While the scars of the attack would never fully heal, Michelle refused to let the tragedy define her. Instead, she chose to focus on her recovery and finding a sense of peace after such a horrific ordeal. In February 2016, nearly a year after the attack, Dynel Lane went on trial for her crimes. The courtroom was packed with people eager to see justice served for the brutal attack on Michelle Wilkins. The prosecution laid out a detailed and damning case against Lane, presenting evidence that showed the extent of her planning and the brutality of the attack. The prosecution's case was built on the overwhelming evidence collected from the crime scene, as well as the digital evidence that showed Lane's meticulous planning. They also had the powerful testimony of Michelle Wilkins, who took the stand to recount the events of that fateful day.
When did you first realize that you were no longer pregnant with the boy?
It was not until the next day in the hospital when I woke up.
And someone told you what had happened to Aurora? Do you remember?
I think I realized. But I still asked Dan when we were in the hospital, when they pulled all the tubes out.
And what did Dan tell you?
That she didn't hear say.
Yes.
He said that she didn't make it.
Can I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Thank you.
Ms. Wilkins, I'm going to show you a plastic bag that has something in it. It's marked for the record as Exhibit B. Do you recognize what's in that bag?
I do.
Can you tell the jury what it is?
It's my sweater.
And is it the sweater you were wearing that day?
It was.
Okay, Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 80.
No objection, Your Honor.
Court will admit Exhibit 80.
Michelle's testimony was emotional and gut-wrenching as she described how she had been lured to Lane's home, attacked, and left for dead. The defense attempted to argue that Lane had acted in a moment of mental instability, driven by a desperate desire for a child. They claimed that she had not intended to kill Michelle, but rather had been overwhelmed by her emotions. However, the prosecution effectively countered this argument by highlighting the extensive planning and premeditation that had gone into the attack. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Dynel Lane, guilty of attempt to commit murder in the first degree.
On April 29, 2016, Dynel Lane was sentenced to 100 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime and the profound impact it had on Michelle Wilkins and her family. The case of Michelle Wilkins had far-reaching consequences, not only for those directly involved, but also for the broader community and the state of Colorado. The attack sparked a national conversation about the rights of unborn children and the legal protections available to expectant mothers. At the time of the attack, Colorado law did not recognize unborn children as separate victims under the state's homicide laws. This meant that Dynel Lane could not be charged with the murder of Michelle's baby, Aurora, even though she had caused the baby's death. The case highlighted a significant gap in the legal system, prompting calls for legislative changes to better protect unborn children in cases of violent crime. In the wake of the attack, there were efforts to pass legislation that would recognize unborn children as victims in cases of homicide and other violent crimes. However, these efforts faced opposition from those concerned about the potential implications for abortion rights. The debate over fetal homicide laws remains a contentious issue, with strong arguments on both sides. For Michelle Wilkins, the aftermath of the attack has been a journey of healing and advocacy. She has become a vocal advocate for victims' rights, using her platform to raise awareness about the dangers of meeting strangers online and the importance of following one's instincts. Her story has resonated with many, offering hope and inspiration to others who have faced trauma and adversity. Michelle's willingness to share her experience has helped foster a sense of solidarity among survivors of violent crime. She has connected with other survivors, offering support and encouragement as they navigate their own journeys of healing. Her resilience and determination to move forward, despite the unimaginable loss she endured, serve as a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit.
I choose to use my time to address you directly, Dynel, because up to this very moment you have refused to acknowledge us, the victims of your violent actions. I am a compassionate person. This is the foundation of the beliefs from which all others grow. It is clear that you need healing, and it is my sincere belief that you get it. However, there were atrocities committed against me and my daughter that sent a ripple of pain out to so many others, and they must be addressed. Those committed against Aurora's father and all of her grandparents, against law enforcement and first responders who cannot unsee the trauma that you created, and against your partner and daughters who surely have guilt, shame, and trauma of their own to wrestle with for the rest of their lives because of you. I did not learn until the trial just how many opportunities you had to do the right thing and then chose not to. You knowingly left me to die multiple times. The only tears that you shed during the trial were those of self-pity to the sound of your own voice as your lies were slowly revealed. And yet, even now, you cannot come clean about what actually occurred. You embrace your narcissistic fantasy to fulfill the lie you created, and it was more important than my right to live and Aurora's right to live. This is a picture of her.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Lane, please direct your comments to me.
I trust the judge to make a wise decision on what you believe to be fair, but I believe that you should receive the maximum penalty because I believe you've lost your privilege to live in our society, not only because of your actions during the attack, but also your actions since the attack. Your inability to acknowledge the immense cruelty and evil you committed only proves you are not fit to walk free amongst us ever again. I hope the counsel you receive reflects that acknowledging the obvious, the proven that you've committed these horrific acts, the least you can do is to begin atoning for what you did. What is done cannot be undone, but I fervently hope that you use the rest of your time on this earth with meditation and prayer to help you come to terms with what you have done. It is your only chance for healing the hurt that you have caused.
Your Honor, objection at this point. This is inappropriate. May we approach, Your Honor?
Everybody sit down. Ms. Wilkins, is there anything else you want me to know?
That is all.
Thank you. The point is moot. Thank you. Mr. Garnett?